Darwish Elassi has been fishing the waters of the Mediterranean his whole life.
الشبك بيقول لي فصل لي شبكة عدة بفصل لك بيقول لي فصل لي يعني حسكة فصل لي يعرف ايش نوع السمكة يعرف اشي اما بقول لك غير هيك انسى ما بنعرف اشي مش احنا بس يعني ابوي وسيدي من اول قبل كمان هيك يعني ما لهم دعوة فيك سياسة ما فيش حاجة لا بيعرفوا الشبك والسمك وخلص.
Darwish has taken my fixer, Raid, and I fishing just a few hundred meters offshore. It may look idyllic here, but for the past 5 months, the Israeli Navy has blocked the fishermen's access to the open sea. For all his efforts, Darwish only catches a couple of crabs and 2 prawns.
معي عمال وجاي وشي وبنزين ايات ولا بيجيبوا اي شيء ولا بدي لك شيء.
But if we go out any further, we risk being shot at by the Israeli Navy. Darwish tells me that one fisherman was killed just 2 weeks ago in a hail of bullets.
ده اسمه هاني النجار. الله أعلم بالعمدة تصيب هو أجا هيك أجا براسه طلع من عينه خش من عينه طلع من شكل ثاني.
Israel says the blockade is to stop Corporal Gilad Shalit, the soldier kidnapped by Palestinian militants in June, from being smuggled out, and to stop arms being smuggled in.
There's no question that they're trying to smuggle in weapons all of the time. And the land border between Egypt and the Palestinian Authority is the main smuggling route. The reason that they don't smuggle in from the sea is because we, in that sense, try to stop it. And I'll remind you, they've tried to do so both successfully and unsuccessfully in the past.
بتصير الصيادين كلهم غلابة صيادين وبدهم يعيشوا لا لهم بالسياسة ولا لهم بأي شيء آخر لا شليط ولا غيره ولا غيراته هذا له بالأكل والشرب بعياله يربي عياله ويكبر عياله اللي بيعرف الصياد أما غير هيك نهاية ما فيش ولا بيعرف أي شيء يعني الصياد كل الصيادين بحكي بالنسبة لكل الصيادين إذا زي السمكة بالضبط إذا طلع من الأسفلت وشرقة بموت.
Darwish is forced to buy fish from another fisherman in order to feed his family on the last day of the holy month of Ramadan. His wife says life in Gaza has never been this bad.
والله عشان كبروا أولادي أصعب رمضان لقيته. وضعنا تعبان كتير كان. بالمرة يعني نص وزني خاس.
The blockade has devastated the fishing industry and the tens of thousands of people who depend on it for their survival. The long siege and constant artillery attacks have also left infrastructure in tatters. Ever since Israel bombed Gaza's power station in June, the main sewage plant here has been filling up, unable to pump away the waste. Gazans are concerned that soon they could literally end up wading in it.
This is a horrible state of affairs. I don't think there is any place else in the world today which have been subjected to the kind of siege and torment that we have been subjected to here in Palestine in general, but in Gaza in particular. This is a total war siege situation. Where very little is allowed as a trickle to just keep us, I think, just one little step away from total starvation.
Almost 1 million Gazans survive on handouts, either from the United Nations or from a variety of charities like Al-Ribat. But even here, they have trouble helping those in need when there's no electricity. Ever since the power station was bombed, Al-Ribat's coordinator, Suleiman Abu Husa, has spent a lot of his time in the dark.
إلا أنه للأسف الشديد في ظل الوضع الحصار الاقتصادي السيء من قبل الإسرائيليين ومن قبل الأمريكان لحكومة حماس، طبعا هذا طبعا أساء بشكل كبير جدا للعمل المؤسساتي، بالعكس هدم المؤسسات.
When the light comes on, I meet the poorest of the poor. On the eve of the Islamic feast of Eid al-Fitr, this old lady says there's nothing to celebrate.
بدناش مصاري نعيد وناكل، بدناش نصرف على حالنا، وين العيد؟ فيش علينا عيد، عيد حزن ها.
She'll only be eating this week thanks to handouts from friendly governments in the region, including Iran and Syria. The West condemns them as part of the so-called axis of evil. But according to Al-Ribat's coordinator, Suleiman Abu Husa, their support is literally keeping Palestinians alive.
إيران وسوريا تحديدا بأنها هي اللي بتدعم الإرهاب، شيء احنا هذا الموضوع مهم يعني، بأنه احنا طبعا بالنسبة لحكومة إيران، بالنسبة لسوريا وبالنسبة لكافة الدول العربية وخاصة إيران وسوريا، يعني أكثر شعب صحيح بيقدم خدمات وبيقدم دعم للشعب الفلسطيني، شايف علي في خاصة في قطاع غزة والضفة الغربية، يعني بيقدم الشعب اللي هو الإيراني والشعب اللي هو السوري بيقدم خدمات جليلة خاصة على جميع المستويات. مثلا سوريا بتقدم على مستوى الخدمات بالنسبة للطلبة، وإيران بتقدم على مستوى العلاج في الخارج للجرحى، بتقدم على مستوى الطرود الغذائية.
Wasfia Hassuna is collecting a coupon to get her food parcel. Her husband is an engineer who used to work in Libya but has now been unemployed for 6 years. These days, they survive on charity.
والله إحساس الواحد وضعه تعبان، صح بكون خجلان وإشي، لكن مع صعوبة الوضع وإشي الواحد بخفف شوية من المعاناة.
At the Al-Ribat depot, she uses her voucher to collect her rations. It's enough food to feed her family for 10 days. Each person is brought here to collect their package on their own, for fear a crowd could mob the depot. I travel with her back to the crowded refugee camp that has been home to her family since 1948. What started out as tents on the beach has now become a sprawling suburb of Gaza City. Wasfia lives in this tiny house with her husband and 8 children.
افتح الشباك يا محمد. شايف هنا بتدلف كلها مية. الثاني الصبح. شايف؟ ها. خد كبها كبها. والثاني هذيك كله بتدلف من هذا ومن هذا ومن هذا. خليه يصور. كلها بتدلف حتى من هنا. كله هنا والأوضة مليانة والفراش شايف ها كلها وجوب مية مليانة مش عارف وين أنشر والله ما أنا عارفة وين أنشر.
Do you feel sorry for the people there? I mean, surely the vast majority of the Palestinians in Gaza are not militants, and yet they're suffering for those that are.
David, I'm a mother. I have 3 kids. And when I look at those pictures, I feel very strongly for them. It's definitely a tragedy. And the tragedy of the Palestinian leadership that allows their people, instead of building jobs, instead of having schools, all they do is fire rockets. All they do is plan violence, and it's coming from the top.
Today, Gaza seems more bleak than ever. And not just because of the constant pressure from Israel. There are grave fears that clashes between Fatah and Hamas militants could reoccur at any moment. A photographer and aid worker have just been kidnapped and then released. Eid al-Fitr is the biggest event in the Muslim calendar. Hamas Prime Minister Ismael Haniyah arrives to address the faithful and lead the prayers. He's the leader of a democratically elected government, but with all funds blocked because of its refusal to recognize Israel, his ministers have been reduced to carrying in suitcases of cash from sympathetic governments. But today, Haniyah vows that Hamas will not back down.
They don't have to bend back and say, we love Israel. That's not the expectation. But can he actually say that terrorism is a bad thing? Okay, that's too much for him. Can he actually say, I recognize that there is such a thing of State of Israel, even if I don't like them? Whoa, there are different things that they can do, small things. They can stop the Qassam rocket firing into Israel. It would bring about a world of difference.
But even one of the chief negotiators of the Oslo Accords says that recognition of Israel got the Palestinians nowhere.
And even when President Arafat have really recognized the independent, the Israeli state and respected the agreements that he signed with that state and condemned every violent act against Israel and stopped all confrontations with Israel on every side, even then the Israelis kept siege of this part of the world. Even then the Israelis violated all the agreements that they signed with us.
الذي تعامل مع قضيتنا على أنها قضية أموال تصل شهريا إلى الناس هنا على أرض فلسطين إلى قضية مال مغشوش سياسيا أن قضيتنا ليست على هذا النحو وحسب إنها قضية تحرر من الاحتلال لها ركائز القدس والأرض والدولة والحدود والأسرى واللاجئين هذا ما قاله شعبنا الفلسطيني.
Isn't it ironic, though, that the world demanded democratic elections down in the Palestinian territories, and when the results came through, nobody seemed to like the results. It's ironic.
You know, David, I think that there's a discrepancy in the way we understand things. There are democratic elections, but we're not talking about a democracy. And the fact that those were, I commend those elections. They went out and they voted, and what they voted in and what they chose. But right now, you don't have a democracy there. So let's not talk about the democracy of the Palestinian Authority, even if they did have democratic elections.
Palestinians know that unless their government recognizes Israel, they face the prospect of many more years of pain and suffering. Yet incredibly, people I spoke to here seemed prepared to pay that price.
Why? Because he expressed our opinions.
Our feelings and opinions. They want him to recognize Israel. If he recognizes Israel, the world will give him thousands of the money that was coming here. 1,000 times of the money or 1,000 amounts of money. But he will not do this, and we don't want him to do that.
You don't want the money for that? That's too big a sacrifice, is it?
We will sacrifice for our country. We will not sell our country with a little of dollars. No one will die of hunger. But we will die if we sell our country.
After the prayers ended, just a few kilometres away, Israeli soldiers kill 7 militants, including 2 senior leaders. The next day, the funeral brings together all of the militant factions. Only a few months ago, they were shooting it out on the streets, but it seems the Israeli attacks are uniting Palestinians. The mourners marched through Beit Hanun. After I left Gaza, this town was besieged by the Israeli army for 6 days. Nearly 60 Palestinians would be killed. Israel says the loss of life in this conflict is unfortunate, but the ball is squarely in the Palestinian court.
In September 2005, Israel gave the Palestinians all of the Gaza Strip, every single inch. The people in the Gaza Strip chose to fire out rockets. And I say it may not have been every single person there. It wasn't every John, Tom, and Harry, which there would be Ahmed and Fuad and Hajbi or whatever. But standing here and taking that choice by using the violence as a tool, by trying to say, we're not going to succumb, what we are going to do is to continue violence, they made this choice. They can choose other. Now, I can't do that instead of them. Israel can't solve that.
At 6 a.m. on the 8th of November, 10 days after I left the Gaza Strip, there was a bloodbath. Israeli tanks fired shells into several houses in Beit Hanun. Most of the 19, mainly women and children killed, were asleep when their homes were hit. One of the houses belonged to my translator and driver, Raid al-Atamna. A friend of Raid's filmed him just hours after the missiles hit.
I don't know. Just I see full of pieces. Just I go to hospital, I don't see anybody still alive. All of them is dead. All of them. I don't see anybody still alive. All of them is dead. That's it, I know.
Raid was not home at the time, but 17 of the dead were members of his extended family. Israel says it was a technical error. The Palestinians are calling it a massacre.
I live here, you see? This one, this two, this is 3, this 4. Over there, my house. This one, do you see this window? This 1 window, 2 window, you see it? This is my house, family's house. This is my father's house. This is my uncle's house. This is my uncle's house.
I knew Raid as a moderate. He had often worked as a guide for Israeli journalists. But after this terrible event, he was saying things I had never heard him say.
I hate these people. I hate America. I hate everybody. This give him to attack the civilian, to attack people staying in these houses, sleeping. You think these people, you want peace? Which peace? Which peace with these people? Which peace with these people? Which peace with Nazi? Nazi, you have any peace with Nazi? It's Nazi. No any peace with Nazi. No any peace with these people. Nothing. Nothing with these people. I forget 18 dead. How I forget 18? How I forget 18? 18, most of them kids and women and old people. How 18 years, 16 years, 17 years, 8 months, 1.5 months. How I forget? No way, no way. No way to forget, no way to forget anybody from this family. No way.